Good morning. I'd like to talk about the neurodiversity movement, or the ND movement. There's a few things that I constantly read about it, and I just had a conversation this morning with another autistic person about it. First and foremost, I'm a person with my own mind. I'm not a representative of the ND movement. It just happens to be a way of thinking that I feel aligned with as an autistic person. It's not a set of rules. The neurodiversity movement is not a set of rules. It's not a faith or a denomination. It's just a way of thinking, a set of values. So the first thing that I read all the time, and I hear all the time, is that the neurodiversity movement is only geared toward or targeted toward people like me. People who, in the medical model, would be arrogantly, ignorantly considered high functioning. Now, people think that the neurodiversity movement is only suited to people who can speak, who drive a car, who can study, who can express themselves, who appear to live functionally. I'm not going to break that down. I'm going to say this. There are many advocates who feel aligned with the neurodiversity movement, who write about the ND movement, who speak about the ND movement, who have full-time carers. Many of them are non-speaking. So the idea that the ND movement only works for people like me is a myth. Secondly, there is a myth or a belief or an understanding that the ND movement overlooks that autism is a disability. It doesn't. In fact, if people want to read about or investigate the ND movement properly, what they'll discover is that the ND movement considers autism definitely to be a disability, but we look at the social model of disability rather than the medical model of disability. Now, the difference between these two is that the medical model of disability regards a person who is disabled as responsible for their disability, or, taking care of themselves in their own way. Now, of course, this rings true for autistic people. I'm responsible to look after my self-care. If a place is noisy, I can pop on a set of headphones. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. There's a whole range of practices that I can implement as an autistic person to look after my autistic needs. However, when we look at disability from the social model, what we consider is how supported an autistic person is by their community, by society, socially. So, is society considerate of the disability that autistic people live with? And how do they go about accommodating our needs? How do they go about considering how they might change environments so that we are more comfortable? So there's another myth that isn't correct. I hear a lot that people think that the ND movement is a cult. It's not specifically driven by one person. There isn't a god or a guru or a leader. There are people that coined the term, but they are not the people that lead the movement. The movement is made up of an entire range of autistic people who want and choose to live their life along the lines of having positive autistic identity. It is a community of people who celebrate and embrace being autistic. That isn't the same as saying being autistic is not challenging, because it is. And we know this because we live it. This is our lived experience. Autism is a disability. The ND movement, however, avoids using language like disorder So it avoids pathologizing or medicalizing a human being based on their medical diagnosis. So we recognize that autism is so much more than a medical diagnosis. It is this way of being. It is an internalized experience of being. I am an autistic being. I am an autistic person. We use identity first language. I choose to say I am autistic rather than I am a person with autism. Being autistic means that I have a lifelong neurological difference. So the way that I receive my environment, respond to my environment, think, feel, smell, see, taste, love, the way I cope, the way my body feels or moves, everything about my being, everything about my experience of living is influenced by my neurology, by my neurotype, which is autism. So for this reason, I don't see myself as a person with autism. It's not that I am a non-autistic person with a side of autism that I can just get rid of or flick off or treat, because it isn't a condition that can be cured or treated. We can work with our challenges. We can manage our challenges. However, I will be autistic for all of my life. So if you have any questions about the neurodiversity movement, I am more than happy for you to pop them in the comments section. I am more than happy for people to not feel aligned with the ND movement. I support autistic people in making choices that feel right for them. And I understand and accept autistic people who would prefer not to be autistic because they are having such a hard time in life. I feel compassion and empathy for that experience. Again, that is not to say that everybody else has that experience. We do have challenges. We all have challenges. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a diagnosis of autism. If we were people that went about life not feeling challenged socially, communicatively, on a sensory level, then we wouldn't have a diagnosis of autism. We are different. We have challenges, but that doesn't mean that I want to be a complete other person. That's not my experience. But that doesn't mean I think everybody should have the same experience. I'm accepting of autistic people, what they believe in and what their experience is. I think the crows agree too. Have a great day.